Hi, folks. You're with Tacitus today. Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this radio, audio, no pictures live stream. Please listen to the essays. You're driving along in your car or in public transport or your truck or whatever. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the issue of how many aggressive, angry, hate the West activists are appointed into senior government roles and key government roles, or even lower down the food chain. There's an obvious and marked preference to hiring people into the government machine, into the globalist machine, the NGO machines that have intermeshed with Western governments now, of hiring people who appear to at least aggressively hate the West and believe that all Western society must be dismantled and replaced with, well, what no one's really quite sure, but whatever it is, it's going to be a nirvana or a paradise. So why do we need to worry about the details? I think it's always important that when you take something away, as in a societal structure, what will you replace it with? How many people will have to die as you put your new system in place? And if we look at the communist revolutions in China and Cambodia and the Soviet Union, then we're talking about deaths of upwards of 100 million people were killed just so a social ideology could be forced into place. So when you're looking at what do we replace something with, it's worth pondering for long and hard on the subject. Anyway, I was looking at some videos recently about two areas. One is the appointments, the judicial appointments and other appointments that the Biden administration is putting up. And you could see the same thing with the Obama people as well, but the Biden administration is putting up to, and it's not Biden's decision. I mean, he doesn't know what day it is, for fuck's sake, but the goons and the stooges, globalist stooges around him, they put up their candidates for judicial appointments, public service appointments, and so on. And for the most part, when I get to look at it, I'm staggered at not only how low IQ these people are, but what an activist view they have of the world. The West is run by an evil white Nazi fascist patriarchy, misogynist patriarchy. Hitlers are everywhere. Swastikas are on every street corner and adorning every dinner table. And these people are there to fight back against Hitler. And only the complete dismantling of Western society will do. This is not a matter of fine-tuning or a bit of adjustment here or there. It's a completely new way or different way of organising society, and it must be done. That they are obligated to do it. This is not a matter of achieving it through debate or the ballot box or so. No, this will be imposed, and it will be imposed aggressively and or at the point of a gun if necessary. They have the moral high ground. Everyone else is Hitler, and it goes like that. But these are not people who, other than their aggressive commitment to dismantling Western society, and you can tell that they're too stupid to understand what they're doing, so they've just been radicalized as you would a low IQ child almost. And a lot of them do talk as if they're children and have the reasoning power of a child. So anyway, this is so looking at this, I'm sort of surprised. Now, I'm surprised at the extent of it, and surprised at how little pushback there is. That's the bit that sort of throws me. That people are trying it on, sure, but there's almost no pushback anywhere around the Western world. These people are filling all the key positions, and the idea you have someone that doesn't go along with this, that would be the rarity. And yet here we are. So what I guess I'm interested in, certainly from the point of view of this essay, is to talk about that these people come from only a few groups within Western society. So there's a heavy overrepresentation of black activists, particularly women. There's a very heavy overrepresentation of gay lesbian activists, LGBTQ. There's a very heavy overrepresentation of Jewish activists and other sort of NGOs, Hispanic. So pretty much you could just put up like a job board or something and say, look, if you hate the Western society, you want to dismantle it, there's a job here for you. Doesn't matter if you've got an IQ of -5 million, if you're a fucking moron. As long as you hate the West and want to dismantle Western society, we've got a job for you. And it's pretty much sort of how it goes. Now, it doesn't mean they're all morons necessarily, every single one of them. There are some who are heavily invested in terms of ideological predisposition to the destruction and eradication of Western society. Jewish activists, for example, gay, lesbian, and so on. Now, looking at, say, there's a few in the US, there's a few government departments that are, and you can see it around the rest of the Western world, by the way, but just looking at the US at the moment, there's some government departments that disperse foreign aid and that sort of thing. But other government departments that are responsible for justice or whatever, it doesn't matter. And, teachers, education sector. And I'm staggered at the amount of people who are Jewish and gay, lesbian. Now, given the amount of jobs in the area, say if you just took, this is the more senior roles, you randomly took 100 jobs in dispersing foreign aid, as a case in point. Now, a lot of this foreign aid goes to NGOs that are actually promoting LGBTQ and other issues in the third world. So it's really a propaganda division to foment social change, not only in the US, but in the third world as well. Even basket case places that they can barely get running water, and yet they want to spend money on setting up lesbian counselling centres and so on. Anyway, the Jewish angle is interesting, because out of the top 100 jobs, more than 3/4 of them are filled by Jewish people, and the majority of those are gay, lesbian. Now, if you look at the proportion of gay, lesbian, Jewish people in the United States, it comes at about a quarter of 1%, a quarter of 1%. So, and even that's being generous in the numbers. But let's suppose that's the numbers there, a quarter of 1%. Now, we can say also, if you come at it from another direction, that there's an over-representation of Jewish gay, lesbians who have a college education. Because, the average, like the spread in the population is 40%, 45%, whatever it is in the US. But amongst Jewish people, it may be 80%, for example, gay, lesbian, Jewish people, this is. So you say, okay, well, you may get an overrepresentation because there are more of them running around with supposedly a sociology degree, which kind of been very exacting. But having a look at this, these aren't just rando Jewish people. These aren't just ordinary people. These are people who are very much part of the activist NGO activist class, the anti-Western activist class, anti-Gentile class, anti-Christian class. So these people are very invested, not only historically, but certainly today, very invested in dismantling Western society. Straight white Christian culture, it's got to fucking go, because it's fucking Nazi, because it's the sort of society that will spawn Hitler. So they're very much invested in this, and they think not only should they do it, must they do it, but they're obligated. It's the only way that the Jewish race can be protected is by dismantling straight white Gentile Christian society. That is the only protection, the only thing they can do to protect the Jewish diaspora for now and evermore. So they're very invested in that. Now you've got black people, so we're all being held back. We'd all be managing directors of the bank. We'd all have waterfront properties if it wasn't for white people holding us back. So they're invested in it. There's Hispanics who think the same way. Hey, we'd have that waterfront property. We'd have those nice cars. And we'd have those hot chicks. And so they're invested in it. But if you look at the amount of people who are, directly invested in it, as in aggressively invested, not those who may passively be, I don't care, it doesn't bother me. You look at the people that are aggressively invested in it, would it even be 5% of the population in total? Let's be ultra generous and say that it's 5%. Now, there are people who are in well-paid public service jobs, and they are sympathetic, not activist, but sympathetic, or not unsympathetic, maybe is a better way of putting it. But if you look at the amount of people that are in well-paid public service jobs, or even jobs for life, like a teacher or something like that, and they'd be susceptible to this sort of ideological, there's a nirvana around the corner if only we get rid of the patriarchy or something. Then you'd be, again, this is being generous. You'd be lucky to get to 20% of the population. Yet those activist people, the 5%, they seem to occupy 80, 90% plus of government jobs, certainly at the apex and certainly at the decision making. I mean, how many Western hating Jewish gay guys can you find in America to put into these fucking roles? Now, they're privately they may concede that things aren't being very well managed. There's a lot of wastage, and some of it's quite silly, and so on. But their core mission: we must dismantle straight white Christian Gentile societies. The only way our diaspora can be protected. There is no other way. Well, hold on, stop, fucking stop. The best way to protect, if they assume that they are, and because they've got this sort of folklore thing, the Jewish diaspora, that a new Hitler will emerge every so many years, and they're so frantic about it that they're looking for these Hitlers everywhere, lifting up rocks and where's the swastika, and they're just consumed by it, and I think it blinds them to other more important realities. My view is that how did the Nazis come after the Jews in Europe? Well, they just got rid of due legal process. They got rid of the rule of law to some extent, state, but they got rid of due legal process. They got rid of independent courts. They got rid of evidence. They got rid of tested evidence. They got rid of the right of the innocent till proven guilty. The Nazis got rid of it. When it came to Jews, they kept it to some extent for others, but when it came to Jews, they just got rid of that. Now, if that legal apparatus all stayed in place, the Nazis couldn't have touched the Jews, because they had to have an independent, impartial court with the rules of evidence. You can't just say, well, I'm not interested in your witness. I'll raise the bar I'll lower the bar of proof, the burden of proof, so it's zero when it comes to incriminating Jews. But when it comes to Jews defending themselves in court, we're going to raise the bar to the fucking sky. So if Jews want to protect not only themselves but anybody, then absolutely scrupulous application of due legal, scrupulous fucking application of due legal process, and the testing of evidence, and not having a lowered bar for this group and a higher bar for that group. So the independent, impartial, absolutely scrupulously fucking impartial. That's the way you do, and equally scrupulously impartial departments of public defenders, prosecutors, and so on. That's how you do. And elections that are not rigged, and so in juries that are not handpicked and stacked. I mean, does anyone doubt that the jury that convicted Trump wasn't handpicked? Does anybody even doubt that for a minute? I mean, fuck, if they can stack entire public service with anti-Western activists and do so under the very noses of those who supposedly have an oversight, then isn't that who has any doubt about the stacking of that jury and the handpicked nature of it? In the same way that a handpicking Western people who hate Western society and believe they have an obligation to dismantle it, and there's nothing wrong with doing it. Controlling the media, shutting down alternative voices. All this is part of it. This is acceptable because you're dismantling an evil society and you're stopping Hitler. And this is the nonsense and the insanity that they run with. But if you want again to protect the Jewish diaspora, then you have free and fair elections that again, in terms of levels of election integrity and probity, are just beyond suspicion. That they are the highest levels of integrity and probity. Completely impartial, independent public services that are there to serve all the populace equally, no matter what. Education institutions and so on and so forth, independent and impartial. So if you want to protect the Jewish diaspora, and these people do, and it's very much at the forefront of their minds, then you do those things. because that protects you and it protects everybody else. And when you have a system that's that well governed and protected in terms of impartiality and levels of probity and so on, then it's very hard to go after any group, because you go after Group A, then Group B thinks, holy shit, that's going to be me they'll be coming after next. And that's unacceptable. So it drives me to fucking distraction. In some of the court cases that I've seen, there are Jewish activists, Jewish judges in there who've got a history of online activism, and they're engaging in radical activism in the court. Why? Haven't you learned anything from the fucking past? So it's very, very important. So looking at these radical activists who are small, there is an unswerving commitment by, in this case, the Biden administration, the Democrat Party, to stack activists everywhere, every judicial appointment, every public service, and there is no one pushing back against it. And this is something I hope the Trump administration really puts. You public servants are here to serve the people, not to engage in fucking political activism or judicial activism or anything like that. So if the Jewish diaspora wants to protect themselves, and if I was the president, I would be the first to come out and protect the synagogue or anything like that. Not because I'm Jewish, I'm not, but because that level of impartiality and that high standards of the rule of law and duty must be enforced. That is the only way. If you want to have any, what is a progressive society? What is the zenith? What is the apex of human progress? It's that having fully independent, impartial courts of law with rules of evidence that are equally applied, and everyone is equal under the law. That is how you identify an advanced progressive society. It's not by how many black lesbians you have, in the fucking public service or something. You've been a Tassus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.